Oh, welcome back to Andrew's One Barbell. I'm Andrew Blackwood.
I'm Andrew Rowe.
And we are back again, I suppose.
For episode 4.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, delighted
It's gone
to be
by
here.
quick. Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
We haven't been seeing each other outside of this.
No, it's a good excuse to see each other. To be honest, we actually probably go a long time without seeing each other before we started doing this. Like we'd go months, 6 months, a year.
There was a point where like Australia time, COVID time.
And then you went away as well. And
Yeah.
Well, anyway, now we see each other too often. So
Way too often.
Yeah.
It's past the
To be honest, we'll just stop doing this, I reckon.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it. I'll just send voice messages in.
My favorite clip from episode 3 is you going, I hate this guy. This is the last podcast we're doing.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, how are you getting on? What's going on in your
I'm
world?
good, like college is busy.
Yeah.
Training's good though.
Yeah.
Training's really good. Kind of starting tracking my food more seriously with yourself.
Yes,
so
we
just,
started.
even though we haven't talked about it, just having a sheet there to put my details into is incentivizing.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm going to be, I was going to say looking after your nutrition. It's not really. It's more a little bit of a collaborative approach.
Yeah.
Just giving you some resources that you can try stay on track, make sure that you're progressing at a reasonable rate and so on into these competitions next year.
I could have just freeballed and ate as much as I could, but the fear was that in 2 months' time, closer I get to competition, I'd either have gained nothing or have gained like 5 kilos. Both options are undesirable. Like I want to be gaining, but at a manageable rate, not putting on a blob of fat and
having someone external kind of just helps that you don't have to think about it as much.
Yeah.
You just have a little bit more of a framework, a little bit more structure. Yeah. You just input the data as needed.
I didn't realize I've tracked my calories lots over the years. Haven't done it in a good while. Seriously, kind of don't like it. It's kind of annoying as fuck.
Yeah. Like I'd say initially, there definitely is some resistance that you need to get over. There's new habits that you need to form and so on. It was interesting as well that we realized there was like some misconceptions that young Andrew Rowe had around tracking.
My life, it's all been a lie, bro. I've been tracking since I was like 14, 13 maybe, on and off. And all that time, I thought, hear me out, hear the logic behind this. I know it's wrong, but hear the logic behind it. When you cook chicken, let's say it starts off as 300 grams, and then you cook it and it's like 230 or something. My young mind was like, well, I'm eating 230 grams of chicken, not 300. That still sounds right.
Yeah.
But it was until you, and actually I texted Jane as well.
You didn't fucking take my word for it.
No, I texted you both at the same time, you know? And you know, if you said something different to her, then fucking you were trying to fuck me up. But yeah.
So yes, you should be weighing your food uncooked. The labels that are on like food packets are in their packaged state. Yeah. So yes, if you have chicken and you are like intending to eat that chicken, you weigh it out uncooked, and that's the nutrient density. Even when you cook it, it might, like meats will lose some weight because they're losing water and whatever. Yeah. Things like pasta, rice, they will gain weight. They're like absorbing more water. It will depend the method that you cook it with. So the nutrient density and whatever will always be the same. Weigh it out when it's uncooked and then go from there. But I'm sure there's many people who think that as well. So
some days I was annihilating the toilet, wondering like,
what is going on?
Like, but it was actually the 400 grams of protein I was ingesting.
Which is crazy as well, because you are like a very advanced lifter. Well, like you've been doing this for a long time.
It shows,
and up until this point,
make mistakes. All the way through.
So get a nutrition coach. Hire me. Anyway,
Andrew Blackwood.
What's going on in my world? Training's going good. I am finishing off the deficit tomorrow. I had a low weigh-in of like 108.5 this morning. So I'm roughly like 5.5, 6 kilos down from 6 weeks ago. And there was also a week in there where I was on holidays and I kind of wasn't in the deficit. So that's pretty good. I'm very happy with that. That was the desired rate of progress to get down. I feel good about body composition. I feel better than I actually thought I would. Now, there was a period along that time where I felt so-so because I wanted to continue the deficit because I started seeing changes that I liked. But I had to catch myself a little bit because it can be a bit of a slippery slope where it can be hard to have a clear endpoint for the deficit in that case. So I had to just have a strict either like weight cap or like a time constraint that in X amount of weeks I'm going to stop the deficit no matter what, because I probably will not feel lean enough to stop and transition out of the deficit, because I don't think you'll ever feel lean enough.
I was going to say, it's you never reach it.
Yeah, because I've never done this, and I probably never will, but listening to a lot of people doing like competition preps for bodybuilding physique shows, where they talk about the skewed perception that they had of their own physique by the time they got down to like super lean body compositions, where they thought they still weren't lean enough and they didn't want to post certain videos or pictures or whatever because they thought that they were fatter than they were, but now in hindsight, looking back, they realized that they were absolutely shredded and whatever. So yeah, I had to try learn from them, try learn from their experiences so I don't have to make the similar mistakes. So yeah, I just decided I would continue for 6 weeks. After the 6 weeks, no matter where I was, I would cut it off. And it just so happened that I landed exactly where I needed to with the rate of progression that I needed. So yeah, we're in a great spot now. I think I'm going to transition into a bit of a maintenance phase for a week or two after the deficit, and then into a surplus from there for junior nationals and then hopefully junior worlds and Euros next year.
What weight do you think you could come in?
For those competitions?
For junior nationals, 6th of April.
I would need to look at the numbers for like the realistic like rates of gain that I could make. I would say if I was even gaining like 1% body weight per month, that's like a little bit over a kilo, whatever it is, a few months from now, 4 or 5 months. Yeah, if I could gain 5-6 kilos between now and then, I imagine as soon as I increase food again, you'll see the spike, just where you've got more glycogen stores, you're holding more water. So I'll probably be up to like 110 from there. So if I weighed in 114, 115, anywhere around like 115, I would say would be a good spot for those competitions.
How is training feeling that you're lighter?
Honestly, I was quite surprised at how good things felt. I didn't really notice any like negative implications from the deficit. On the one hand, it's been a short time frame. It's only been 6 weeks. So I thought my bench would take like a big hit. Didn't really. Bench has felt great. Deadlifts have felt quite good, just as I've leaned out a little bit. Leverage has become maybe a little bit more favorable. Squats, though, over the last 2 weeks, I've definitely noticed feel harder. It feels like the weight is just like heavier on my back. I feel a little bit smaller, frailer under the bar. There's a little bit less just mass, real estate around the midsection, a little bit less compression, just from like your gut hitting off your legs. I just feel there's just more space around my joints. So you feel a little bit like Bambi. So that's been something to get used to, but I know as soon as I reintroduce like food and I'm getting heavier again, that'll come back pretty naturally. One thing I talked about on one of my YouTube videos recently was like, I don't need to be strong right now. The objective is not to be strong right now, so there's no point in me comparing the weights that I'm lifting, like say that I'm squatting right now to when I was in competition prep where I was squatting 300 plus and I'm squatting 250 now and it feels heavy. It's not the objective. I've been in a deficit for weeks. I can't compare that to when I was at my absolute strongest and I was 6 kilos heavier. So just, yeah, being able to zoom out, look at the overall picture, understand what the intent is with training at the moment. So yeah, not too concerned. I know as soon as I'm getting heavier again, it will come back. What I've also noticed for myself is my squats tend to like peak quite a lot. Like in those last 4 weeks leading into a competition, I will be squatting like 50 kilos heavier than I do on my standard training around the year. And that used to bother me a lot, or I used to struggle with that a lot, because I'd be like, I'm squatting 250 now and it's hard as fuck. Like, how am I supposed to be hitting these numbers that my competitors are hitting? And then I'm actually peaking for the competition, I'm removing all the accessory fatigue, and then squat just like goes to the moon. So just understanding that now, having been around the block enough times that I know myself, I know the way my body responds, I'm not concerned.
Yeah, there's a large discrepancy, is what you're saying, between when it feels really good and the average squat of your training. Yeah, it can be hard to deal with, but it doesn't
as you have more experience, it just gets easier.
It's where when people say like it only counts on the platform, like as much as sometimes I don't like that, because you know we spend all our time in the gym. You want to count what's in the gym for your own sake, but when you're thinking about comp numbers and like you have a comp in 6 months' time and your sets of 4 feel terrible, 6 months out it's like it doesn't actually matter. All you're doing is training, adding,
building.
You're just building. So.
Very good. Right. So for today's podcast, we have a vast and interesting topic to explore, I believe.
It's not feet. That's all that's going through his mind.
Just cut the cameras. Cut cut the cameras. This is over. Cut the camera. I thought we left that in episode 3. Okay.
We should get a camera under this table so show what he's doing with my feet right now.
Okay, whatever. We're still running with this. Man, there's going to be some people who are like actually believe this. Whatever.
Yeah,
anyway, so recently I made a post on Instagram, and the topic of the post was that powerlifting should be fun. And when I made this post, it got a ton of like really positive feedback. A ton of people reaching out and saying, this message actually really resonated with me. This is something I need to remind myself of, because quite often we can like fall into the trap of like powerlifting feeling very overwhelming. It can feel almost like all-consuming, super stressful. But I think it's very important to be able to remind ourselves that like powerlifting should be enjoyable. Like at its like core, that's why we do this. We do it for enjoyment. Powerlifting should be adding to your life more than it detracts. So when I put up this post, again, the majority of the feedback was positive, but interestingly, and this is always going to be the case whenever you're posting anything on the internet, there was someone who commented, and I'm trying to remember the general like flow of the thread of comments that he had. But initially, it was along the lines of, I'll never understand this mindset because not everyone trains casually, okay? Ooh, a little dig in there, right? So I was like, okay, whatever. And I replied to something like relatively nice. I was like, oh, well, like, what did I even say? I can't even remember what I said. But it was something along the lines of just because like you have fun doesn't mean that you can't train hard. Like it doesn't mean that you're training casually just because you're enjoying yourself. And then the thread went on. It kind of devolved into like insults and stuff. His
From Andrew in particular.
His justification was that like, if you want to be successful at something, you need to not focus on having fun. You need to embrace the hard stuff, embrace the suck, he said. Then he went on that all successful people disagree with my mindset that you should enjoy it and have fun. And then it devolved into, okay, you're a loser, stay with your like weak-ass mindset, all this stuff. Yeah. And then other people got involved and it was a big, terrible thread. But as much as this person was like trolling, they were not engaging in any sort of like meaningful conversation. I can somewhat sympathize with what he was saying and what perhaps he meant with you have to embrace the suck and those kind of things, because there is some validity to that, like embracing the suck, and you have to, if you want to be good at something long term, be okay with like consistently showing up and doing the potentially like tedious tasks, like monotonous tasks. But I believe that just because something is like hard does not mean that it has to suck, or that it has to be miserable, or that it has to, why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
Just say difficult and
whatever. Anyway, just because something is hard, it's
doesn't mean it has to suck.
Like you can still have fun when doing difficult tasks. What do you think?
We're going to break this down here. We can talk about it in 2 sentences, but Andrew and I ended up having a discussion about it last night for what felt like hours.
A long time.
It was back and forth breaking this down.
So there was a few things that we could kind of go from this topic. So like, let me have a look at my notes, because I was like typing a stream of consciousness to try make some sort of like coherent structure to everything that was going on, because we felt that it touched on so many different areas. So being able to sympathize with like having to do the hard things, that doesn't need to be miserable. You can still have fun. Now, we ended up on an interesting topic that we weren't sure how to talk about, where the idea between something being difficult and going through that pain and discomfort as opposed to suffering when doing it. So the perspective that you have around a situation will, in large part, shape that experience that you have with it. So we need to preface that obviously there are situations in life where bad things happen to you, and we're not saying that like, just don't think it was bad and be happy and be positive. Okay, obviously you could nitpick and poke holes in that like thought process, and it's not infallible, if that's even a word. Is that a word? I don't know. But there is something to that where if you can approach difficult tasks with a positive mental attitude, you do not have to suffer going through it. Now, there's a guy that I know of in Australia who is a bit of a head case in the nicest way possible, where this guy, he has like the Guinness World Record for the fastest time to pull a truck 100 kilometers. He did it in like a day and a half around an airport. He stayed awake for 100 hours. He has like the most amount of calories burned on an assault bike in 24 hours. And I first heard this concept from him talking about doing these like incredibly difficult tasks that are painful, that you suffer like going through them, but your attitude towards it means that you don't have to like go through like negative emotions in order to get through it, if that makes sense. Now, it can be a little bit of an out there topic. I don't even know how to summarize it, but there's something in there. I don't know what you can take from that, what you think about that general approach.
It's like a voluntary exposure to maybe less harmful suffering, less psychologically and physiologically harmful suffering. Because there's going to be plenty of things that life throws at you that are either psychologically, physiologically, or both harmful, and that you do suffer through those things. But there's a lot to be said for voluntary suffering.
Hardship.
Suffering is, if we're using that word, is like persevering through very difficult hardship. And it is very different from those involuntary harmful experiences. But when it's training, when it's studying, that comes to mind for me is like, you don't have to do it, but I feel better when I do. I feel better when I do. My self-esteem goes up. There's huge benefits to just push yourself. This is why we train, right? It's why we bother. And I think I mentioned briefly in response to one of your messages, I was like, you know, if you're saying you're powerlifting because it's healthy and you should exercise and it sucks just do something easier. Like if you're doing it because it's supposed to be fun, that's why you're choosing it over an aerobics class or a spin session. That's why you're choosing powerlifting, because you feel it's enjoyable. So it should be enjoyable.
You should be able to draw that enjoyment throughout the majority of your training. It should not be something that is consistently adding stress to your life. So we might jump around in this because there's so many different ideas, but just building off of that topic that you had there, powerlifting is enjoyable. That's why we like started it. But why is it enjoyable? This is something that I ask myself like somewhat frequently, like why do I actually do powerlifting? What is it about powerlifting that like keeps me coming back after like 5-6 years, that I am so invested in it that I keep showing up? Why haven't I thrown in the towel? Like what is it about powerlifting that I enjoy? And I've asked a few other people, like, what is it that you enjoy about powerlifting? Why do you do this sport? So that we can have a better understanding of like what it is at its core that we are trying to like gain from it. So for you, what is it that you enjoy about powerlifting?
First thing that comes to mind, if there's way more, is the social element and community involved in powerlifting. I think that's huge. I think having friends and enjoying life with other people. Everybody enjoys this to varying degrees, but I've noticed over the years that I've come to value that more than a lot of other things in powerlifting, right? And it's huge. Like my best experiences are with people or are involving other people. It's the development of friendships, new friendships, or the maintenance of old ones. That's what powerlifting brings in large part. And
that is something that powerlifting does like incredibly well, I think, is just like building that community, like that support network of like-minded people where you can engage in this like activity that is like productive and like beneficial for your health, but also you get to just like see your friends, hang out for like a couple hours in the gym, just like chat and have like positive human interaction. Like even us, like we're best friends from this niche sport of just like picking up weights. And I know for myself, a lot of my closest friends I've met like through this sport itself. When I go to the gym, I look forward to seeing the other people there, getting to hang out, getting to chat with people. So I think that's a massive thing that powerlifting has in its favor.
We mentioned how one of the most common means of socializing, especially as we grow older and everybody's in work, in college, and they're busy, is meeting up to drink on the weekend. And want to preface that, like, we weren't shitting on drinking. I drank during the week, it's fine. But it's that we get to be healthy as well.
Yeah.
We get to
it's
do
like,
this kind of productive.
It's almost like putting money in the bank rather than like taking withdrawals. When you're going out and drinking, you're almost like,
you're spending.
You're spending money first of all, and then you're like having an impact on your health. You feel, I know for myself, the reason that I don't love drinking is because I feel awful the next day. No matter how much I drink, I don't know if it's just the way my body like processes alcohol, but I get terrible hangovers. I feel unmotivated. It just has a knock-on effect on every other area of my life. I get worse sleep for a few days afterwards. Whereas powerlifting is it's like a positive way of socializing and so on. So that, first and foremost, is like a massive thing. Powerlifting adds to your life because it allows you to interact with those other people, like in your community, have this support network of close friends and people even across the world that you have this one thing in common with, just because you guys know the hardships of picking up heavy weights and putting them back down again. So like community, that's a massive thing. When I've asked other people as well, that has always been kind of the top of the list of what is important. Then I know for myself, one of the things that I love about powerlifting is having like a purpose, having some sort of direction, having something that I'm like working towards, climbing the mountain, like having this track that every day that I wake up, I know I'm like working towards this like self-improvement, like constantly trying to get better, having something to do with my day. I know if I wasn't, and even sometimes when I'm like, I have a rest day and I'm not training, I don't know what to do with myself to a certain extent. Like I still have other things to keep me busy, but like I end up getting in my head. I'm like, if I did not have some sort of direction, well, it doesn't even need to be powerlifting, whether it's like your work or your whatever it may be, other hobbies, having some sort of like purpose, something to get you up out of bed is like so important. Yeah. And then the fun that you can take from that, of like overcoming these obstacles that you're like consistently faced with in training. And it's like so objective because it's a literal like weight. It's actual resistance that your body is not able to like overcome. You go and you put in work for X amount of time and you come back and you can now overcome that resistance based on the work that you put in. It's almost like a video game. Like you're leveling up your stats. You're like increasing what your character is capable of while also being like productive for your health, like having you live longer, all those other kind of things. Like that is, for me, so fun. Just being able to look back and say, I can now do something that my body was like not capable of doing before. At its essence, that's why we all like love powerlifting, I think. Just having that sense of achievement after putting in like hard work and being able to like, objectively look back and say, I was able to do this. And I think that kind of then bridges into, when do we not like powerlifting? When is powerlifting not fun? Like when does it feel like it's taking more from your life than it's adding to it?
Let me add that I completely agree with everything, and it's nice to hear you talk about it in that way. It is like this source of positivity and development of self-esteem. I think I said that a few minutes ago, I don't know in what context, but it's like the image I have and we have of ourselves is someone who is willing to do difficult things and do them consistently and do them well, and over time get better at doing those difficult things. So powerlifting is our means of doing that, but it's just nice to see ourselves as someone like that anyway. Yeah. And then when we do it so consistently, I now refer to myself or see myself as someone who does these things consistently and who can. So yeah, sure, it might not be powerlifting sometimes. It's other things that you can persevere through difficulty and hard work. But that's how we view ourselves, and as you constantly reinforce that, now how we view ourselves is someone who can push through difficult things. Yeah,
you build up that self-confidence. I think that's something that people talk about a lot with powerlifting as well, is like before they got into it, maybe they weren't as confident or they didn't have that self-esteem that you mentioned there. Whereas when you build up that evidence with yourself that I am someone who can like put in hard work, I can persevere, I have these qualities, I'm someone who says they will do something and then gets it done, that will then carry over to all other aspects of your life, whether it's work, whether it's school, whether it's college, whether it's whatever. And these are just all things that just give you positive feelings. They feel good. Having that sense of like self-worth, that's what powerlifting should give you. But there are times when powerlifting, it feels like it can take that away. So I think the most obvious time for myself that I can think of when powerlifting is not fun or feels like it's taking more from my life than it's giving, it's when you're not making progress, all right? So there has been tons of times, as we've talked about in the previous podcast, where I've gone through like years of just spinning my wheels and not getting any better, and feeling like I'm putting in all this work, I'm devoting so much time, energy, resources, money into this sport that is giving me nothing back. I'm not getting this sense of like self-worth or this sense of achievement or sense of any of that stuff because I'm not actually getting better. I feel like I'm useless because I'm putting in this effort, and why am I not seeing the reward for it or seeing the return on investment? So I then started thinking, what can you do about that? How do you get out of that rut where you're not making progress? Now, we can go into a million and one topics here, and honestly, we've covered a lot of it in the previous episodes, but we'll go over it again because it's valuable. It's valuable information. The more times you hear it, the more it begins to resonate. And even I might just be talking to myself here, just so I can reaffirm for myself that these are the things that I need to do, or the way to recenter myself or get the ship back on track when you kind of stray off course. So how do you think when you're not making progress, what are some obvious things that you can do to get yourself moving in the right direction again?
That's
such a vast topic, such an open-ended thing.
Topic. I think, yeah, we touched on these like core principles. Episode 2, I think, is where we started talking about them, but they come up every time we talk.
Time and time again.
You worded that question weirdly. I don't know how to answer that shit.
Okay, well, I would say first and foremost, getting a coach. Someone who knows how to like steer you in the direction that you should be going. Yeah. Okay, that's a very obvious one, so we'll just get that out of the way.
And if you have one,
first and foremost,
talk to your coach.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel often when people are frustrated with their training, people close to me, my first question is like, well, yeah. You and Joey have a relationship that's unique to maybe the relationship I know Adam has with some of his clients. Also, I know with the question I'm asking people, like, oh, have you spoke to Adam? Have you spoke to Connor? Whoever their coach is. For you, it's have you spoke to me?
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm your coach. It's like I'm your soundboard a lot of the time. Whereas you're not going to send Joey voice messages for him to be like, yeah, sounds good. You know. No, that was oversimplifying Joey.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
It's more that I am the rambler. I'm the one that you can ramble to. And that's first and foremost. Yeah, you said get a coach. Utilize your coach. Like your coach isn't this person that you need to hide things from. Like just give them what you're thinking and let's see what they can do with that. Like that's why we have our coaches.
And that sounds very obvious, but that is something that needs to just be mentioned every now and again, because you can fall into the trap of not doing that. And sometimes feeling that if things have gone off track, you don't want to share it with your coach because you want your coach to think you're doing good, and you want them to feel proud of you. So when you've like messed something up, or you haven't been good with your nutrition, or you haven't been whatever it is, you overshot. You almost don't want to tell your coach because you don't want them to be like, oh, this guy's an idiot. What did he do? Not that that's what your coach will be doing, or at least not what your coach should be doing.
You just react with laugh emojis to their messages. Like, wow,
you fucking suck.
Yeah.
So yeah, first and foremost, communicate with your coach. Let them know what's going on. Let them help you. Then, I know for myself, one of the massive things that helped me and has been like a paradigm shift in my approach to training is realizing that muscle mass is the key to like long-term progress and long-term success. If you want to like consistently be getting better over time, I personally believe you have to be building more muscle over the long term. Obviously, you can make improvements not building muscle. You can improve the efficiency of your technique. You can make like neural adaptations and so on, where you just improve how you can like produce force. But that runs its course eventually. Like, if you want to be getting better 10 years into powerlifting, I believe you need to consistently be getting bigger, building a bigger frame that you can then use that increased amount of muscle mass with the competition lifts to produce more force to then be lifting heavier weights. So if you are struggling in a position where you feel like you're not making progress, zoom out a little bit and say, okay, the overall direction of my training, my body weight, am I getting bigger? Do I have room to get bigger? Maybe you feel like you're carrying too much body fat. Okay, maybe it's time for you to go into a deficit then, so you can set yourself up at a baseline where you can then build in a surplus for an extended period. So yeah, I would say muscle mass like beats any sort of like technical shortcut every day of the week. Like muscle mass is primary focus. If you find that you're not making progress, have a look at that. Have a think about that overall. Is that something that you can improve on?
I like that.
Yeah.
That's how you wanted your question answered.
Yeah.
You asked the question with the answer in mind.
I know, yeah. I was
to
setting myself up to talk. So yeah, that is a big one. I would say, just being aware of the overall picture you're training. That's how you can start making progress again. Now,
next one is expectations versus reality.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a very deep topic.
This seems to be a huge one, right? And I think I might have mentioned it already in another podcast. But when do we not like training? When our expectations are out of line with reality. What's more in your control? Your expectations. And it comes back to a bigger topic we were talking about, is controlling what's in your control and being okay or letting go of the things that aren't, right? Expectations are the main one here, but it's everything. We need to be happy, or let our happiness come from things that we can adjust ourselves, not have it depend on things out of our control. Of course, things out of our control are going to make us happy. What other people do, the numbers on the bar, the outcome of things. But there's 101 variables that go into producing an outcome, that why not just be happy with the inputs? And this is what I try to get into all of my lifters' heads, and I think they all take it very, very well, is we can only be happy with the effort we're putting in. It comes back to, you can only do your best. I love that.
100%.
Because I wish I heard it so much earlier on, is that you can only do your best. You can only be happy, or you should be happy with your best. That's all you need. That's all you need. Sure, in one day, your best might not yield anything impressive to you. You might just hit the same weight you did last week. Oh, I'm not that cool. 2 weeks, your best effort. 2 months, your best effort. 2 years, your best effort. Something's happening. As long as you're keeping the core principles in mind, that's all you can be happy with. So when your expectations are out of line with reality, and we've both experienced this, everyone has experienced this, and we all slip back into it sometimes. But what it is when you want to deadlift 300 kilos, you're currently at 250, all right? This is just an example. What would you change there?
I would say, even forgetting about 300, personally with my approach to training, I wouldn't even have 300 on your mind, especially if you're at like a 250 kilo deadlift, but so many people are. That is like, and again, it can be hard to like understand or process this like approach initially. I know I struggled with it because the sport is based around numbers. So someone telling you to forget about numbers can be quite difficult to come to terms with that. But I would stop thinking about 300 and focus on the process. That's what I came back to a lot with my stream of consciousness on these thoughts. Almost everything came back to being like process oriented with your approach to training. So instead of focusing on these objective things that you do not have control of, whether it's a number on the bar or a placing at a competition or whatever it is, you cannot necessarily control those. What you can control is how much effort you put into the process. Every single day, if you are ticking your boxes with nutrition, you're getting in enough protein, you're getting in enough calories, you are getting enough sleep, you are doing all of the possible things that you can do with your training. And then from there, taking the enjoyment and fulfillment out of knowing at the end of the day that you did everything in your control. You gave all the effort that you could have given, instead of, I did everything, but I didn't get this objective number that I wanted. How can you be like upset with that when you have done your very best? You've done everything that you could do. Upset
with that is okay. Upset with yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't be upset with yourself for doing your best.
But I know for myself, I would have been in that mindset for a long time. So 3 years of training, especially my first few like international competitions as a junior, I had this mindset, and we'll bridge into this topic as well, of like the Mamba mentality, the Michael Jordan mentality, the champion mentality that's super hardcore. You have to like want to win above all else. You have to want to like destroy your opponents. You have to want to like kill everyone. You can't even think about losing. If even the thought of not winning comes into your mind and you're not a winner, you're wasting your time, you're a loser, why are you even showing up, right? That's what I felt for a long time. So I thought I needed to be like infatuated, like every single part of my like being had to be focused on winning. And then I would go to these competitions and I'd come 7th and I'd come 8th. And I thought I was like a piece of shit. I thought I was such a loser. I thought I was a waster. I was like, why am I even doing this? Why am I going to these competitions to come 7th? Bro, I'm coming 7th in the world. In the entire world, I'm coming 7th, and I'm telling myself that I'm so bad and I'm terrible and I should give up and I should quit because I'm not number 1. And I did that for years. And eventually I realized I can't control where I'm coming necessarily in these competitions. I thought I could. I thought I could control it by being infatuated with winning, and that having this like unrelenting desire to win and not even considering losing would get me closer to winning. But I realized that result is not in my control. I can't control what other people show up to the competition. I can't control what their training is like, their genetic potential is like. I can't control if they're on PEDs or not like that. I have no control over the result of the competition. All I can control is how much effort that I put in. And I had a big shift. Again, I've talked about it like over and over. I'd say about 2 years ago, where I started focusing on just giving my best effort and taking confidence and taking enjoyment and taking fulfillment out of just trying hard. And no matter where I came at the end of a competition, no matter what numbers I lifted, if I tried my very best, then that was a success to me. That was perfect. I did the very best I could do, because in that scenario, kind of as you mentioned with the numbers, there will be times where I'm looking at my competitors and I'm thinking, okay, I need to be squatting 280 to hang with these guys because I need to be winning, so I need to be lifting the weights that these guys are lifting. So I'm thinking, okay, I squat 260 now, I need to squat 280 in this competition. Imagine a scenario where I did absolutely everything I could have possibly done. I did all my training to the perfect RPE. I was on top of my nutrition. I did not fall off track once. I ate all the calories I was supposed to eat. I ate all the protein I was supposed to eat. I slept 9 hours a night. And the max that I was capable of at that competition was 270. Amazing. You did everything you could have done. But you then look at yourself like you're a failure because you didn't reach this expectation that wasn't necessarily based in reality, because you can't control that. You can't force a number to happen. You can only try to facilitate it with your effort. You can't force progress. You can only do your best showing up each day to try allow it to happen. So that is a big idea that I've had. And since then, over the past 2 years, I've loved every training session. I've had so much fun in training because at the end of the day, no matter what number was on the bar, I tried my best. And then I can go, that was a success. I'm someone who gives their best effort. I'm someone who shows up no matter what, even when you don't feel great, even when the number on the bar is a little bit lower, even when I'm now squatting 250 and it feels hard and I've squatted over 300 before, but I'm trying my best given the circumstances that I have at the moment, and that just feels good. That is an amazing feeling to have. So instead of being self-deprecating and being your own biggest hater, beating yourself down based on these unrealistic expectations, if you can focus on the positives, as we talked about before, find things to take confidence from. Literally nitpick every positive detail that you can to give yourself all that evidence that you have something to feel good about. You're human, you're trying your best, that's all we can ask for. So, geez, I rambled a bit there, but yeah, try your best, that's what it all comes back to. And I think from there, I said I wanted to bridge on to like that like Michael Jordan mentality and like all the hustle porn you see on the internet where you need to be like why? Okay, you know what I mean. Anyway, like you need to be like the biggest lion in the jungle or whatever the fucking saying is. Where, it's like promoted that you need to almost be like there's this negative connotation around being successful. That ties back to what the guy who commented on the video, what his understanding of that or his perception of that is. You can't focus on having fun. You need to embrace the suck. You need to be in this environment that is like miserable or like negative in order to be successful. You can't have fun. You need to like win at all costs. If you're not number one, you're a loser. All those kind of things. You can't even think about losing. And I could just never relate to that. I was trying to force it for so long, but it just didn't feel authentic to me. But I'd never seen anything otherwise. Like that whole like Mamba mentality and stuff is like praised, and it's like there's almost like lore around it because it makes these people seem like they're like superhuman. They don't have like normal thoughts and doubts like the rest of us, and they are able to just manifest this success based on their like unrelenting desire to win. And you see it again with people like on their villain arcs. Everyone's miserable and moody and in these like dark settings with their like hood up. And I don't believe that you need to be in that environment to be successful. But I'd never seen otherwise until I saw Chris Bumstead talk about it. So it was on a podcast with Max Tuning, I believe. And he was talking about like the hardcore, like champions mentality he could not relate to at all. Like the MJ, the Floyd Mayweathers, these kind of people. He's like, I just could not relate to it because I fear losing. I think about losing. And I'm super stressed leading into competitions, like the Olympia. Like that weighs heavily on me. Like I deal with all these things. I could never imagine wanting to like destroy all my competitors and stuff like that. And he's like, I had to come to a stage where I accepted the possibility of losing. Like I had to imagine a world where I don't win the Olympia and be okay with that. Yeah. Be okay with that reality. And he said that was so freeing because he was then able to just enjoy the process. Just do his best, put in the most effort that he could, and whatever the outcome was, that was perfect because he did his best. And when I listened to this, I was like, oh my God, this is how I feel, but I've never heard it put into words like that. It was unbelievable. It was like, it blew my mind. And he was like, yeah, people would always say to me, like, that's not a champion's mentality. And he's like the 5-time Mr. Olympia. So then I remember seeing another clip leading into this year's competition where he was like, my objective this year is just to enjoy it. Enjoy the experience, have fun, because before I felt I needed to numb everything out in order to perform well. In order to be successful, I needed to be in that state of like embracing the suck, being in this negative mindset to be successful, but realizing now I don't need that. I can accept the possibility of defeat and just focus on giving my best effort and enjoy the whole experience, everything about it. And for myself, I've tried to adopt that mentality like over the last few competitions that I've done. And oh my God, my performances have been so much better because when you don't fear losing, you are okay with the potential of losing. You don't need to be world champion. Obviously, we would love it. I would like to be world champion, but I don't need that for me to be happy, for me to be fulfilled, for me to feel like I'm a good person. I don't need this objective thing that I don't necessarily have control of to have self-worth and to value myself. And that has been amazing for me. Over the past few years, I feel like I'm in such a healthier place mentally because of that mindset that I've tried to adopt. And it's not perfect. There's obviously times where training is a little bit harder and you fall into slumps every now and again, but trying to always recenter myself to giving my best effort has been amazing. Do you have experiences with that yourself? Because I don't think you were as bad as I was in terms of the mentality that I approached powerlifting with. I think you had a little bit of a healthier mentality to start with.
I think I just had Adam, my coach, just talking the right things in my ear. But we say time and time again that it's very easy to be told these things, but it's about experiencing and learning them for yourselves, for them to really cement in your head. Like I could tell him what he wanted to hear, but what I felt was often more in line with that idea that like, okay, if it's not the outcome that I think is possible, then I'm shit. Like, why am I doing this kind of thing? But then, yeah, it was this eventual transition into process orientation, right? You were saying, like, of course we want to be world champions, but it's okay if we're not there. If we come to Malta this year and you come last, but you've done your very best, and you did your very best for the entire process. Yeah, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all you can control. So I think, as you said there, a lot of my thoughts just come back to being process oriented. And there's all the cliches that everyone's heard before of like, the man who likes to walk will travel further than the man who loves the destination, like those kind of things.
Fucking stick though. Yeah. And they're boring. Normally the things that stick are extreme. That's why that's why the Mamba mentality gets so popular, is because they're cool. Yeah. Like they are, you use like characters. Yeah. It's almost like they're a video game or like a movie character.
Yeah.
It's like,
they're not real because they're so superhuman.
They're like a superhero, and that's why superheroes are so popular. That's why I watch those movies all the time. But it's why they're so cool to look at. It's because it's like they are defying reality. They are the ultimate outcome. Of course, you're going to think of the ultimate outcome. You're going to think of becoming world champion, like the penultimate possibility. But that isn't reality. The 0.001% is not reality. Like, just because you grind, hustle, work, you're not going to be Elon Musk rich. Just because you train every day, you are probably, you could say with almost certainty, you will never be as good at basketball as Michael Jordan or LeBron. that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
Right? But that's almost a fact.
Yeah.
Statistically. And so comparing to a almost fictional character, statistically they are fictional.
Yeah.
Right? Comparing to those is infinitely detrimental. Detrimental. There's no overcoming that.
And I used to think, sorry to cut you off.
You could be.
I thought, yeah, but that's what the losers think. If I just have this indomitable spirit and I just focus on winning so much, then I will get there. Because that's how they did it, so I have to get there as well. Yeah. But I've since realized you don't need to in order to be successful. You can be happy and successful. You can have fun and be successful. And more often than not, if you're having more fun, you'll be more successful long term because you'll stick with it long enough to be successful at it. Yeah. So this was a point that I came to my mind that when I came out with this, I was like, oh my God, that's genius. It's like a divine inspiration came through me to let it out. But I was like, enjoyment is going to be the key to longevity, and longevity is the key to being successful. Yeah. So if you enjoy the process, you're going to stick with it long enough to get good at it. If you are solely focused on these objective outcomes, that's not going to be enough on those days where you are really going through it. You're having a tough time. You're dealing with an injury. You're dealing with a plateau, a lack of progress. If you're only focused on the outcome and the outcome bringing you all this happiness, it's not going to be enough for you to stick with it the whole way compared to someone who is just passionate about showing up over and over and over and over again. You can't fake passion about just being in love with the process.
Let me combine the two ideas here, right? Because we started off with MJ and Kobe. This isn't to say don't look at those guys.
Yeah.
They are huge inspirations of mine. And it's healthy because I orient it towards the process.
Yeah.
I am passionate about the process. They were also passionate about the process.
Yeah.
It just so happens that their outcome was so unique and so up there. But no, it is the process I take from them. I do embrace the suck. I am passionate about turning up every single day, no matter what, doing my best, prioritizing it, doing everything I can, being my own number 23. Yeah. It doesn't mean I have to be world champion. It doesn't mean I have to be the equivalent.
And if you're not, that you're a failure. Yeah. That is a big crux
once you
of it,
separate those two, once you come to love the process, passionate is such a good word.
And love the process, but learn to love yourself. Have a bit of compassion for yourself. Yeah. That you're not beating yourself down. It's like a bit of a cliche, but you need to be your own biggest supporter. If you're not if up here is not being productive and moving you in the right direction, you're setting yourself up to fail. And obviously that's very complex, and it's easy for me to say that. And I've been in times where if someone just told me that, I'm like, yeah, fuck off. Okay, what am I supposed to do with that information then? How do I just become more positive? How can I be positive right now when I'm not making progress and so on? I've been there. I can relate to that. I can understand it. But trust me, if you can begin to put the wheels in motion to gear yourself more towards a positive mental attitude of supporting yourself, finding little wins, something that I would do quite often is just thinking about things you're grateful for. And this is just goes for life in general. Just each day, what are 3 things that I'm grateful for today? And spending time with that, spending more time with gratitude and positivity and focusing more of your energy there. Another thing is the type of content that you're consuming. If you're constantly consuming negative content, or you're always in the comment section reading people bitching back and forth and fighting with each other and calling each other names and all this negativity and nasty stuff, that's going to be fermenting in your brain. If you are spending more time listening to positive influences or people who bring joy to you, then you're going to start to foster more of that positive attitude. So for myself, I don't follow anyone on any sort of social media if I don't feel they are contributing something positive to my well-being or my health. If there's someone who's posting stuff that I find makes me feel worse or makes me start thinking these negative feelings and emotions and nastiness, people being nasty to other people, I just instantly I try to cut it out. Now, that being said, there's obviously still a place for people who have opposing ideas to you, and people can present opposing ideas in a constructive way, but it's people who are presenting opposing ideas in a way that is intending to rile you up or intending to stir up controversy and criticism and just hate and just not nice stuff. Spend less time with that. Spend more time being happy, being positive, looking for fun stuff, enjoying things. Just find things that are good, look for positives, look for things to take confidence from.
Nice.
And that kind of, again, extends beyond powerlifting. But there's powerlifting is just like a massive metaphor for life to a certain degree. And I don't want to be like a life coach guru. That's not what I am. It's not like, that's not my intention. But there's so many lessons that you learn through powerlifting that apply to every other endeavor that you do. So
you mentioned the difficulty, the initial difficulty. It's not like if someone is sat listening to this and they're thinking, well, fucking, how can I just, and you said put the wheels in motion. Something that I think helps a lot is being there for my clients when putting those wheels into motion, talking to you and putting the wheels into motion for myself, or vice versa when you were. So what comes to mind is support. You're saying don't be consuming all this negative shit, consume positive and lean on support networks. Anybody, man, if someone fucking texts me that I didn't know and they're saying I'm trying to put these wheels into motion, I'd happily have a discussion with them.
And I think I was thinking about this as well. The best way that you can do that is to like be the change that you would like to see as well. So if you want to kind of cultivate that supportive environment where you have that support network, start off yourself, whether you're in the gym, being around people, like helping people say load their bar, they're going for a set, giving them a word of encouragement. Something as simple as like, let's go. Just giving some sort of like positive reinforcement to someone when they're done a set, saying, nice work, good job. Like I've trained in environments where that happens. And everyone in the gym is like, when you're going for a set, they're around you, they're supporting you, they are like wishing well for you. And it feels amazing. And I've also been in gym environments where you go for a set and you're getting like a few sideways glances, you finish your set and everyone like turns around as if they didn't see it. And I know which one I would rather be in. So yeah, you can start to cultivate that for yourself by being the change that you would like to see. So when you're around other people, just be nice. Give a compliment here and there. Support the other people who are in your network, and that will start to come back to you, the law of reciprocity. If you are kind to other people, that kindness will start to come back. So that's a very easy thing that you can do to start to build that positivity in your own life.
Yeah, you're good at it. You're nothing feels better than coming out of a set and you're like, man, your feet look so good.
I was waiting. I was thinking you'd been serious for a bit too long, man.
No, it just brought me back there. That was like 2 weeks ago.
So yeah, we were talking earlier and I was gonna jump in and segue it off.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what the exact context was, but there is an interesting topic that we've come to a few times and I've talked to quite a few people about, of like gold medal depression, where I don't even know if that's the exact term for it, but that's the term that I've heard like used. And it's the idea that people who achieve these like incredible feats, whether it's like a world champion or someone like winning Olympic gold or whatever it is, thinking that it is going to bring them this like overwhelming, incredible amount of happiness that is like just imperceivable, that is going to make up for all the sacrifice and all of the hard work that like built up to this moment of you, whatever it is, winning the Olympic gold. But in actuality, it ends up with this kind of, and again, I don't like using the word depression too often, but you end up in this slump afterwards where you are totally rocked and you don't know what's going on. Michael Phelps is someone who was like, has came out to say this, where after he won whatever Olympic golds, he was like, the next day was probably one of the lowest days of my life. There's a very common thing, I don't know if you've heard of the podcast Diary of a CEO.
Yeah.
The guy, Stephen Bartlett, he has a book on this whole thing about when he sold his company. He came from he was not from like a wealthy background whatsoever. He sold his company for millions, let's say $500 million, I don't know, I'm making that number up, but something that is a lot of money. And he was like, he thought it was going to be confetti and a king's chair and everyone's parading him around. But he was like, afterwards, I was in such a slump. It was so miserable. So this idea of building up these objective like goals of becoming a world champion or a certain number on the bar, whatever this like objective thing is, building that up to be this like massive thing that is going to bring you all this joy. And when it's over, you're back to your normal life. You're back to being who you are. Nothing has like fundamentally changed. Maybe more opportunities are coming your way, whatever it is, but you are still at your core, at your essence, you. So that's where, again, it comes back to being process oriented. You become a world champion, that's one day out of 365. What are you doing the rest of the 364? Are you going to be miserable? just in the hopes that you feel absolutely amazing when you reach this endpoint, because you won't. And that's me saying...
You might feel amazing on that day.
Yeah, but afterwards, and that's me like saying I'm not in that position, so maybe you can listen to me and say, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. But from listening to people who have gotten there, it's not what brings you that fulfillment. And I've listened to someone else talk about this. They explained it in a way that, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit out there, but they were saying that these goals, like becoming a world champion, oftentimes can be like selfish goals where it's just for you. And more often than not, they are rooted in like ego and insecurity. So again, this is me just repeating and paraphrasing what I've heard from someone else. That more often than not, and Stephen Bartlett in this example, the guy who sold his company for millions, he said he was incredibly insecure about being poor growing up and like not wanting to bring friends over to his house because they lived in like a tiny 1-bedroom flat or whatever it was. So that was like his motivator. His motivation came from insecurity to become really successful. But he realized that when he got there, it did not make up for that insecurity that was still a little bit like deep rooted. So we needed to uncover what the problem was there. Same with boxers, fighters. A lot of them have talked about, I got into fighting because I was insecure, I was bullied as a kid, for example. Israel Adesanya is someone who talks about that quite a lot. He was a UFC champion. He said he was bullied as a kid, and that motivated him to get into martial arts, to build himself up to this person who couldn't be bullied anymore. But there was still that element of insecurity deep down that becoming a world champion does not heal. There's other things that you need to do to learn to love yourself and be able to be comfortable with who you are within the process, rather than basing your whole identity on this objective outcome. So that has been like a really fascinating topic for me. Again, to bring it back to the person saying that this is rooted in sometimes like insecurity and ego, when I think for myself, why did I get into powerlifting? Why did I want to become a world champion? And when I like kept digging deeper and asking, okay, why, I came back to insecurity for myself, 100%. When I got into the gym, I was insecure about the way that I looked. I wanted to look better. I wanted to be jacked and shredded and lean because I thought that would make me feel way better about myself. But it didn't. Like that was not the solution. It has been the process of that, of learning like all these challenges that you face. When we come back to the very beginning of this podcast, you learn that perseverance. You learn to build up that evidence of you are someone who is able to achieve things that you put your mind to. Learning to care for yourself and accept yourself, not based on some objective like of being a world champion. I can like be happy with myself. I don't need to be a world champion to feel like I have value. So that has been a big concept for me. That guy, again, talking about it being rooted in ego, said, if we can have more selfless objectives that are based around like forming positive human interactions, being kind to the people around us, providing value to other people, that is far more fulfilling and rewarding for us than achieving this selfish goal of being a world champion or being whatever. And that's something that I try to implement in my own life. That's part of why we're doing this podcast. That's whenever I'm like interacting with someone, I'm just thinking of how I can somehow provide some sort of positivity to their day, whether it's a smile, a compliment, providing insider knowledge that I have, whatever it is. Providing value and having positive like human interactions with other people is so much more fulfilling than if I became world champion, in my opinion. And then I'm getting enjoyment and happiness every single day because I'm always having these interactions. So again, that's a concept. You can listen to that. You can take from that what you will. You can think that I'm talking out of my ass, whatever it is. But that's something that has significantly shaped my life. And I think if there's anyone who can take any positives from that and put it into their own lives, that would be an amazing thing.
Wow.
There you go.
I was looking at the message that I had typed to you, and I think we covered a lot of what we had already typed. One thing I do want to go back to or fit in here a little bit is it's like a short-term representation of enjoying powerlifting. It's smiling.
Yes.
Smiling pre-lift. We mentioned this. It's just part of enjoying powerlifting, but it's a cool idea. It's a cool concept, right? So you were saying how you now smile. There's loads of videos you've put up of you like kind of dancing, jumping out to the platform, whatever, having the crack. And it does speak to what we're saying is comp day itself is still supposed to be enjoyable. Doesn't mean you can't take it seriously, you can't try really hard. It's not that. But remember to enjoy it. Like that's why, coming back to it, that's why we're bothering with the competition in the first place. It's because we enjoy the competition. We don't have to do it. We know it's not a chore, it shouldn't be a chore. Just go enjoy it. It doesn't mean you have to sing and dance. You enjoy it in your own way. Smiling, however, is a literal cheat code, I think. I think it's actually a way to get yourself in a fun day. Right? So the example I used was when you're crying, or when your friend is crying, someone close to you is crying, or when I was a kid, I remember this shit. I'd be crying about some dumbass shit, and my dad would, say something outrageous or funny or silly, knowing it would make me laugh. And do you have that experience? Do you have a memory of crying and then you laugh, right? Someone makes you laugh. It's especially as a kid, because a lot of things were so superficial you were crying about. And your crying stops because your brain switches to its joyful activation pathway, and it's great. So bringing it back to comp day or the lifts themselves. When I'm feeling like that kind of pre-lift anxiety, if you smile, and I'm going to explain this like from what I understand about the brain and neuropsychology, is when you smile, or I'll go back a step backwards, when you're happy, you smile, right? So when these neural pathways associated with being happy and joy and all those associated hormones, right, you smile, and so you start to attach the behavior of smiling to the pathway, to the activation pathway of being joyful, of experiencing joy. And so when you go backwards, when you smile, it's hard not to even get the shadow. It's not like your brain just forgets what's going on. It doesn't just forget reality, but it does start to activate those feelings. And it's like, oh.
It's like a mechanical way to override your emotions. When I remember someone saying this before, that when you're trying to control your thoughts just by thinking more, it's like trying to catch wind, like it's trying to catch the air. You're like fighting, it's just not possible. So if you can mechanically override the sort of mental things that are going on by doing something like smiling, that then triggers your body associating it with happy times, or the happy pathway. This is just the easiest way to say it, I suppose. It's literally a cheat code. And that's something that I've started doing. Was before going out to an attempt, I will consciously remind myself, I'll just say smile. And to a certain extent, it can be a little bit fake it till you make it. But you notice, okay, after you start doing it, your whole body relaxes. And I saw this recently with someone in the Rugby World Cup, one of the kickers. And there's all these videos of the kicker smiling at the post, so looking at the ball, smiling at the post again. And someone in the comments was saying, he's talked about this in interviews, saying smiling helps him relax his whole body so he can perform better. Because when he's tense leading into a shot, more often than not, it leads to these negative outcomes, decreased performance, whatever. So his routine is literally to smile before he goes out to kick. And that's something that I've adopted myself. I started doing it before I saw him doing it, and I was like, oh my God, that's someone else does it. There's actually something to it there. So that is something that I would encourage other people to try for themselves. Now, you don't need to do that. It doesn't mean if you're not smiling on comp day, you're doing it wrong and you need to do it the way that I do it, and whatever. But it's a little tidbit that you can try for yourself. Because that is something, again, to bring it back to that, gold medal depression, champions mentality. It was very interesting for me at World Championships, where I would see the person who won, the person who came first, beat everyone else by 50 kilos, whatever it is. And I'd go up to them afterwards and say, oh, congratulations, that's amazing. And they'd be like, no, I'm not happy. And I'm like, ooh, what? So and they're like, yeah, I wanted more. I wanted a total more. I didn't live up to my expectations. And I'm like, but you beat everyone else in the whole world by 50 kilos. You are the best lifter ever. Yeah, but I'm not happy. I didn't live up to my expectations. And I thought, again, you needed to have that mentality to be successful, that you can never be satisfied. That is a concept that I had. You can never be satisfied because satisfaction is complacency, and if you're complacent, you're not winning. So that's what I thought I had to do. No, you can fucking win and still be happy, man. It's that was a big turning point for me, where I was if the person who was winning is not happy, there's something going wrong here. I came 7th, and I'm delighted. So since that point going forward, I was you know what, no matter what, I'm going to be the happiest person on the platform, no matter where I come, because I'm proud of myself getting into this position. I'm proud of myself for all the work that I put in. I am just going to be like happy. I'm going to be the smiliest person out there. I'm going to have the best time no matter where I come. And I've since realized that leads to even better performances. It leads to less stress. It's more freeing. It's way more enjoyable. It has made the sport so much more enjoyable for me, coming from a place where I hated powerlifting for years. So yeah, coming back to that, that goes to expectations, you're tied to them, yada, yada, yada. Just look for things to be positive. Yeah.
Be happy no matter where you come.
Yeah.
So self-hate, self-deprecation, all these things, I suggested to Andrew a while ago. We're brainstorming, and I was like, oh, we could do like a pet peeves episode.
Yeah.
And rightly so, he was like, I don't want to be talking about negativity so much. And he was right. I don't like, we're talking about consuming negative shit. Listening to an hour and a half of these guys, two idiots, talking about things we don't like. I don't even want to talk about things I don't like.
Yeah.
But one thing I don't like, and and you're going to hear it, but it's for the greater good. This isn't me saying, fuck everyone who does this. It's, I wish I could talk to everyone who does this. Yeah. And it's a growing trend. I think just with how big powerlifting is getting though, and also just the content that's becoming popular on social media and TikTok, the combination of both of those things, growth and then TikTok, algorithms and things like this, is what we're seeing is more often than not, when people post their lifts or a comp day, that caption, man,
not the day
is literally across the world, across so many lifters. I'd say it's more common than not.
Yeah.
People are like, not the day I wanted, not what I wanted.
So disappointed.
So many things I could have done better, but that's what next day is for. And it's like they're trying to.
Sometimes I feel as well they think they have to say that.
They have to do that. They can't say,
I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of myself. But it's like they either are conscious that they can't say it, or they are just they're taught this subconsciously to that's how they need to view things. It's like, oh well, and it comes back to all of this, the expectations. What should they be happy with? Winning, hitting this 50 kilo PB. They don't do either. Oh, it's not the day I wanted.
Yeah, I had a 50 kilo PB, but I wanted 60.
I wanted a 60, I wanted 100, or I wanted to beat him, or I wanted to hit this total, or whatever. So it's not the day I wanted.
You just inspired a thought to me that I forgot about, and I actually wasn't even going to bring up on this. I don't know 100% what I'm going to talk about here, right? Because I think it's a book. I think it's a book. I saw someone post about it on their story, and this resonated with me so much. I think the book is called The Gap and the Gain. I think it's something about that. I don't know if that is the name of the book or that's just the premise of it, but the person was talking about on their story that more often than not, people are living in the gap of where they are now, looking at where they want to be, what they want to be achieving, what they wish they were like, all the things that they don't have right now. And they were explaining that when you're living in this gap and you're always looking at what you don't have, you're never enough. You can never be happy about yourself because you're not there. You're always less than you should be. And this is like this wears on you. This is like, it's just not motivating. It's just not a nice feeling when you're constantly reminding yourself that you're not good enough or that you should be better, as opposed to looking at the gain from where you are now compared to where you were before and looking at all that you've achieved, looking at all the wins that you've made. I started off squatting 40 kilos. The first time I ever squatted, I squatted 40 kilos in the gym. I've squatted 307.5 kilos. Man, if I looked at the other people in my weight class going, yeah, but they squat 330, 340, I'd feel terrible about myself. If I look back and say I squatted 40 kilos and now I'm squatting 307.5 kilos, how much more could I do? I can take confidence from that process of showing myself, look what I've achieved, look what I can do. That's motivating. You take confidence from that. You look at all the wins. You're finding all the positive bits of evidence that build up your character of who you are and why you can achieve these things going forward, as opposed to living in that gap of why you're not good enough, where you're always going to feel awful. So yeah, I'm glad I got to bring that one up because I had that in the back of my brain, but I totally forgot about it. So yeah, the gap and the gain. Live in the gain. Look at the good. Focus on the positive.
Take the good from everything. And from all your performances, from all your meet days, of all your lifts, post your lifts.
Yeah.
Man, even in an objectively subpar set, right? Andrew's shivering here.
Oh, fucking freezing.
And effectively,
we have a heater under the table and it's actually helping a lot,
Yeah.
but I'm still fucking freezing.
our feet are literally doing this with one another. Our shoes are off and they're actually toe.
You know
in
what
toe.
I think actually now? This guy keeps bringing up feet. I think he's trying to project onto me his own foot fetish. So you know what? I'm playing the Uno reverse card. I think you're the problem in this situation.
Why is it a problem?
There we go. He's admitting to it now. He thinks it's okay.
Yeah, I'm just joining you.
Very good.
Yeah, you don't need to swap it around. I never said I didn't have one. You just were denying that you do.
Whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, if you are one of these people that
Yeah.
are constantly feeling like there's something wrong with what you're doing in training, there's not. You're showing up. You're doing your best.
Yeah.
Love it. Post your set. Say this was sick. Good set. If you hit a PB, you don't need to post tech was a bit sloppy or could have done this better. We know. We're powerlifters. We know your grip was slipping. We know depth was a little bit high. We don't care. We're just happy. When I see someone posting their set and it's like, oh man, like we'll clean this up next time. It's like, I don't give a fuck how clean it is.
Be proud.
I'm just
it's a
happy you're
huge set, that's a
training
big
and
weight,
you're enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
Just enjoy yourself.
That's something that's very common, like with coaching people now. I'll have lifters send me sets sometimes that are perfectly good. And they'll be like, it wasn't great, can probably clean up technique a bit. I'm like, what? They're like the 0.01% deviation because you're lifting a weight that is like 5 kilos below your 1 rep max. Bro, what are you talking about? This is fucking awesome. Like you are doing amazing. Like this is incredible. And that is something that is like a huge emphasis in my own coaching. And I'm in the process of like building a website at the moment. So I've been trying to like gather testimonials and stuff. And it's like the first time I've ever done anything like that. So I sent out a form, kind of not really knowing what the reception would be like, and just to also like gather information on what I could potentially improve on going forward to provide a better service. And honestly, reading some of the testimonials, I almost started crying. I'm not even messing because it's a format of because there's so many.
They're like, you are the worst person I know. I can't believe I pay you to talk to me.
No, because it's a format of feedback that is not common that you would get. It's not very often that people are going to like say to you whatever like feedback that you would get in a testimonial like that. And the best like compliments I could have gotten were around being empathetic and being supportive. And when someone is going through a hard time or they're not feeling good about their training, that the fact that something that I said allowed them to feel good about themselves again, or allowed them to reframe their mindset where they didn't feel so bad about themselves, or they were able to like rebuild their confidence. And like reading that, man, it almost like brought a tear to my eye because I was like, that's something that I wished I had for like a long time. Like when I was beginning like my lifting and going through those years of like the stress, man. I used to hate powerlifting. I fully used to hate it. Like I was like, there were so many times where I was like, why do I do this? Like it's literally like just adding so much stress to my life. It's taking from my life far more than it's giving. And I couldn't see any positives. And the fact that I feel now I can have some sort of like positive impact on someone else with something that I know has been such a large part of my own life is something that I take a lot of pride in and I'm really happy about and has meant a lot to me. So just be nice, be empathetic, be supportive of your friends, just be a good person. Yeah.
Cute.
There we go. Right. Have we touched on everything we need to touch on? Will we kind of summarize the main points?
Yeah.
I think overall, as a parting word, powerlifting should be enjoyable at its core. Like the majority of your training should be fun. You should not feel as though it is something that's like adding overwhelming stress to your life. If you find that it is, have a think about some of the topics that we've brought up, potential solutions to get out of that. And yeah, I think overall, and now I also want to caveat, there's times where you're going to have to drag your heels. It's not going to be sunshine and rainbows 24/7, okay? Like there are times you're going to have to work hard. It's not going to be amazing. You're going to hit plateaus.
Bit of Rocky there, bit of Rocky. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Yeah.
Like there are going to be times. That's not what I want to try like convey, that it's like, I don't know, you need to be absolutely beaming the whole time and powerlifting is going to be so fun and so easy. There are times when it's hard, okay? Sometimes you need like a little bit of discipline to like keep you going. Yeah. But you always hear that like discipline beats motivation, and discipline is so much more important because it keeps you showing up when like you don't feel like it and so on. I think enjoyment beats discipline. if you can find a way to structure your training that you look forward to coming in, you're not doing things that have unrealistic expectations of you. You have a training structure that suits your lifestyle, that suits what you're able to do. You're not trying to overreach and meet some like unrealistic standard that you've set to yourself. You can enjoy the process. And I know for myself over the past 2 years, there's not been one single day I haven't looked forward to going to the gym. I haven't had to force myself to train. Whereas there was years beforehand, I would be having mental battles with myself to get into the gym to go train. Now I look forward to it every day. So I think enjoyment beats discipline. Whereas if you're looking forward to it, you don't need discipline. You don't even need to have that like trying to like get yourself to go do it when you don't feel like doing it, because you want to do it. So try look for all the things that will make you feel good, make you enjoy your training, build that positive support network. Don't set unrealistic expectations. Try, learn and understand what moves the needle that will continue to see you have progress like over many years of your training, and just have fun.
I'm gonna add, talk to people about it. It can be difficult when you're sat there in a rut trying to figure these things out for yourself. Yeah. You hear us saying these things, but how can I implement them? How can I get this going in my training? Talk to friends. Talk to your coach. That's what your coach is for. Like I hope all my babies know that they can come to me and say, man, this sucks. Yeah. One of the best texts I can get is when they're like, when they open themselves up and they're like, man, I'm not enjoying this. I say, fucking, we'll change it right now.
Let's go. Yeah.
My number one priority is getting you enjoying your training. Yeah. If your training looks bizarre because of that, I don't care.
Yeah. But if you feel good, you're able to.
As long as. So talk to your coach, and they should be able to help you. That's probably what I would say you should look for in your coach.
Yeah. If your coach is not supporting you or helping you in that environment, maybe it's time to look elsewhere.
They can know everything, all the ins and outs of every single joint of your body and how it should look or how they think it should look during a squat. But if they can get you enjoying training or help you to enjoy training, reflect.
Yeah.
Andrew and I, our inboxes are always open.
Yeah.
I am more than happy to talk to anyone. I have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
Please talk to me. If you feel like you're not enjoying training and you don't know how to get enjoying it, talk to me. Talk to Andrew. Probably me. I'm more receptive, more welcoming, whatever. Andrew Rowe Odyssey on Instagram.
So we plug our social media, wrap this fella up. So Andrew Blackwood _ on Instagram, Andrew _ Blackwood on TikTok, Andrew Blackwood on YouTube. You are
Andrew Rowe _ Odyssey on Instagram. That's the only relevant one. 2 Andrews, 1 Barbell.
On YouTube.
On
Spotify. If you're on Spotify, rate us 5 stars, okay? I know it's a little bit awkward. Just go to the homepage of the podcast itself, and then in one of those little like sections like of the settings, you just hit that, rate that bad boy 5 stars. Let us know that you're enjoying the podcast. Text us if you like this, or you feel like you gained something positive out of it. I don't know, just shoot us a text to just say like, this was nice. It allows us to know that we're not just speaking into the void, and I don't know, we're having some sort of like impact, and that can help us build that community then of having these conversations with people and hopefully spread that positivity. Right. If you want to get coaching from this young man, where is it?
Odyssey Strength, Instagram, the website, DM me.
Yep.
We'll sort you out.
Evolution Powerlifting, so Evo Powerlifting on Instagram, and we will have the website up and running soon enough. Thank you very much for listening and watching. See you in the next one.